Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap, and this is the Week 10 DFS walkthrough and breakdown podcast for DraftKings and FanDuel. I'm going to try and fire through this one a little bit quicker because I only have about a half an hour here to get it done. So let's just go ahead and get into the games. We will start out here, if I can get my games to pull up and get out of the NCAA section. We're done with that. Done with our Maction. I've been having some fun with that, by the way. Monday night, Tuesday night Maction. Or Tuesday night, Wednesday night Maction. We had football basically every night this week, which was just killer. We had Friday, we had a 3-game Friday night college slate. We had Monday night football. We had Tuesday, Wednesday night Maction. We had Thursday night football. Can't complain too much about that. Washington Redskins at Detroit Lions, we start out with. Sneaky game that on my Roto Grinder show earlier that I did with Chief and with Cardi, that both those guys actually like. They're talking about even playing Alex Smith, just way down on the salary scale. I think that's idiotic. I think that, not calling those guys idiots, but I just think it's I think Alex Smith looks like he can't play. If I were Washington, I think I'd try and put Haskins in there because he looks really bad. This game opened up as a 46-point total. Detroit is now 3.5-point favorites after opening up as 5.5-point favorites. 56% of the tickets are on the over. 25% of the money is on the over. 67% of the tickets on the Lions. Only 28% of the money is on the Lions. So I'm with the Sharps here. I think that Washington could win this game possibly. Our models really liked Antonio Gibson this week, and we talk about it every week here on this podcast about how Detroit can't tackle for shit. So on the Detroit side, Antonio Gibson, I like him. Terry McLaurin, man, Cardi and Chief really love Terry McLaurin. I mean, look, he's got a 6.5 reception, 71-yard prop. So I think that is at least a little bit interesting, but he's not like at this point, you're paying up for Terry McLaurin. You're having to make a decision between a guy like Terry McLaurin and a guy like, he's more expensive than Robert Woods. He's more expensive than Tyler Lockett. He's right there. We're with like guys like Cooper Kupp and Keenan Allen, who I might trust a little bit more, just given the game situations that they're going to be in this game. Only a 46-point total. I think J.D. McKissick is in play, maybe on DraftKings, just because of the PPR floor that he brings. Last week McKissick, it felt like he got checked down to on every single goddamn play. Yeah, 14 targets and 9 receptions last week. Alex Smith, dump off king. So you could go with him, but that's probably about it on the Washington side. Unless you want to get crazy and play Alex Smith, I don't think that that's a good idea, though. Detroit still down Kenny Golladay, of course. I don't think that there's let me just look in here real quick. So for the Lions, let's make sure there's no terrible injuries that we need to monitor. There are of course injuries with the left side of the Lions, or the left side of the Washington offensive line. As far as the Lions, I think Kenny Golladay is the only one that we're really worried about being out right now. Yeah, so looks like Amendola, Marvin Jones are both fine, and Frank Ragnow is back to being healthy. DeAndre Swift, it's just I feel weird playing DeAndre Swift whenever Adrian Peterson has already come out and said that this is going to be a revenge game for him. That's honestly something where you could see Matt Patricia actually being the caveman that he is, and actually giving Adrian Peterson a bunch of run when he absolutely shouldn't. But I'm not in on Marvin Jones. He only had 4 targets last week. Danny Amendola had 10 targets last week, so maybe you can think about him. But if you look on the matchup tool at RosterWatch.com, I keep wanting to say the Redskins. The Washington football team is actually like the number 27 matchup, the second worst matchup of the week for opposing wide receivers. So I'm going to stick away from that. I'm trying to think. TJ Hawkinson, he's banged up, so just keep an eye on it for him, but maybe he would be the guy who you could target. There are a couple of tight ends that have started popping up for me that I'm a little bit more interested in, though. Let's go to another game involving two NFC East teams, speaking of one NFC East team in the Washington football team, how about we go to an NFC East matchup here? Philly at the New York Giants. The Philly is 4-point favorites in this game. The total has stayed at 44.5 basically all week. 56% of the tickets are on Philly, along with 61% of the money. 71% of the tickets are on the over here, along with 91% of the money is on the over. So this is one of 3 games this week, basically really 4 games that we're going to have weather. The 2 most significant weather games are the game in Cleveland and the game in Green Bay. With a little bit of nuance to that, the 2 less significant games are the game in Pittsburgh and the game with the Giants in Philly. This one, they're talking about like 15-mile-per-hour winds and some rain. So maybe it affects, like on the Giants side, it affects like the Darius Slaytons of the world. It affects players like that. But I think that whenever I look at this game, to me, this is about on the Philly side. We talked about some reasonable tight end plays. Dallas Goedert to me just pops off as being way too cheap on DraftKings, and he'll be somebody who I'll have a good bit of in my lineups. He's only 4,200 this week. I think he'll probably be somewhere between 20 and 25% owned for that reason. A good matchup for Goddard here, and it's a spot where I'm not sure people are going to be on him. We're going to need to check and see exactly what's going to happen with Alshon Jeffrey if we get news on him. But we know that Jalen Reagor's back healthy. It's not like he's going to take much time to acclimate either, because it was just a hand or something. What was it? A UCL? I guess that's the thumb, like Drew Brees had that 1 year. So he came back. He looked fine. He looked no worse for the wear. They still have the Travis Fulgham stuff. So with Miles Sanders coming back, it's the offense could be in position to score, and when they're in position to score like that, things could tick up for Dallas Goedert in the red zone. And then of course Miles Sanders, I thought it was going to be a sneaky play this week. I had him projected at like 6% ownership, but guys like Chris Gimino over at Roto Grinders, who has better ownership models than I have, is a better methodology for that. He has ownership for every sport, from baseball to basketball to football to everything else. And he's saying that Miles Sanders is going to be 20% owned. And so maybe now I'm not quite as interested. I thought nobody was going to play Miles Sanders, because here's maybe I should just do this differently, but instead of going game by game, I guess this is the way I've done it, so I'll just continue like this. But on this slate, there's a couple of big decision points. I don't think the Mike Davis stuff is a decision point. I think you should play Mike Davis in your cash games. And if you want to get wacky in tournaments and do something really weird, there's some things we can discuss that we can do it. But let me just pull up the Vegas tool and show you why about Mike Davis. I know we're not there yet, but I feel like we need to talk about this stuff to give the slate some context. Of course, you can get access to the Vegas tool and access to all of our tools with a pro membership over at rosterwatch.com. But just looking here at this, Mike Davis has a 5.5 reception prop, a 35.5 receiving yards over under, a 52.5 rushing yards over under, and he's minus 115 to score, and he costs $4K on DraftKings. That is a 4.38x value on his median projection via the sports books, which basically is the highest I've ever seen since I've started making this tool 5 years ago. That's the highest I've ever seen. It's the best value from a median standpoint that the sports books would project that I have ever seen. So I would play him. And then the other thing is, Duke Johnson is right here next to him. And normally what would be a complete outlier multiplier right here of the 3.07 is, it looks puny in comparison to Mike Davis, right? But that's the kind of thing that we're jumping out of our shoes to get on our rosters in other weeks. So you have those two guys. You're gonna have to spend up for one other running back in cash, and maybe within some tournament constructions as well. So I'm wondering if what Jamino is seeing, what the guys at RotoGrinders are seeing is maybe people are going to be pivoting off of Aaron Jones to play Miles Sanders, or they're getting away from that game for maybe they want to play Devontae Adams. They don't want to play Aaron Jones in the same lineup, or not as many people are going to playing Alvin Kamara. I just can't see Miles Sanders being that high. I rarely take exception with what Chris Jamino says with his ownership. Regardless, I think that Miles Sanders is a fine play this week. I would not be as excited to play him if the ownership really is that high. In this case, I don't believe it's that high. I like Jalen Reagor. I think he's like 4,200 or something. I think that Travis Fulgham's finally gotten a little bit out of reach for me. Let's fire through these. Jacksonville at Green Bay. We talked about the big wins in this game. This is one of two big win games. They're the two other games that we discussed. This total's just plummeted from 55 down to 47.5. But Green Bay still is a 13.5 point favorite. 55% of the tickets are on the under. 88% of the money is on the under. So that's why you're seeing it plummet. It's from the weather, and it's both. It's both. It's like it's correlation and causation. It's the big money bettors seeing the weather and they're betting this game down. So who can we trust in a game like this? On the Green Bay side, probably the biggest injury on the Green Bay side defensively is Jair Alexander. That definitely helps a guy like DJ Chark, especially whenever Laviska Shenault is out. But how much do you trust this whole thing about the win? How much do you trust Aaron Rodgers saying that with the adding of the new seats this year? It's funny that they add new seats this year of all years when they don't even fucking need them. But he's saying that the wind isn't quite as big a factor inside the stadium as it might be outside the stadium. We're talking 27 mile per hour, 28 mile per hour winds. These you can look at the Week 8 win game in Green Bay, and as my guy Derek Carty pointed out, it would have been Devontae Adams' worst game of the season had he not scored the 3 touchdowns. To which I told him, but it wasn't his worst game of the season because he scored the 3 touchdowns, right? So I mean, it's hard to say a bad word about Devontae Adams, but it's just the price, man. $9K. It's like he's the next closest guy down is what, 1,300 less, and DeAndre Hopkins in a much better scoring environment, much better, much better just overall environment. So, maybe with Devontae Adams and the fact that I do like Aaron Jones, it's just hard. Look, the play here is Aaron Jones, and he's going to be super, super popular. If you just look from where he is, he's 1,100 less than Alvin Kamara. He's going to come with a ton of ownership, though, and that's a decision you're going to have to make. Can I play Aaron Jones at this type of ownership when I could legitimately, see myself a little bit swindled by like a 56.8% snap percentage? That's a little bit troublesome. He does make up for it. He's got nearly a 17% target share. We know the touchdown equity that Aaron Jones has, but I mean, Jamal Williams, if you were super crazy and didn't want to play Mike Davis and just said like, I want to get okay, so here's some news from the Fantasy Life app. We have looks like Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde are not. Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde have been downgraded to out tomorrow. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. If you wanted to go crazy and fade Aaron Jones and not play Mike Davis, you could play Jamal Williams at 4K. And that's like the ultimate. It's like triple leverage, because you not only get leverage against all the players who played Mike Davis at 4K and made that decision, you get leverage against Aaron for the 30% of the field that played Aaron Jones. Because if Jamal Williams has a big game, Aaron Jones won't have a big game. And if Jamal Williams has a big game, it's pretty likely that Devontae Adams didn't have a big game either. So that's a super galaxy brain kind of tournament play idea, but it's been something that's been kicking around my head. Maybe if you're playing in one of these like $3, million entrant kind of deals, what do you really have to lose in that kind of scenario? In the games that, like, if I'm playing in DraftKings and the Spy or the Power Sweep 3-entry max, those kind of games, it's going to be super hard to get away from Mike Davis. And I'm not even sure it's the right thing. I mean, I asked Chief about this earlier, Chief Justice 06, a great tournament player. And what he told me is that, like, he said, look, sometimes that there's you don't got to get off plays just because they're chalk in tournaments. Sometimes you just have to find other ways to differentiate. I hate it because I really want to play the Buffalo-Arizona game, and what everybody's going to be doing is they're going to be paying down for Mike Davis, paying down for Duke Johnson, doing exactly what I want to do, paying up for another running back, and then flocking to stack that game. Like that's the obvious thing that you want to do, right? And so maybe we'll have to think about different ways around that. We're trying to talk about Green Bay, Jacksonville, though. James Robinson's a good play. DJ Chark is upgraded because of the Jair Alexander stuff. And, make your own decisions about Devontae Adams. I think he's a little too expensive, but I'm not going to come on here and recommend that you not play him. Tampa Bay, Carolina. This game's going to get stacked because so many people are going to be on Davis. Tampa Bay is 6-point favorites here in this game. This game's got a 50.5-point total. It's angry Tom Brady. 55% of the tickets are on the over. 89% of the money's on the over. So we have some big bets coming in on the over in this game. Maybe they're thinking that the Tampa Bay defense is not going to show up the same way as it had been the rest of the season, and maybe look a little bit more like it did last week versus New Orleans when it got absolutely stomped. One of the more interesting things I saw here was that Robbie Anderson had a 6.5 reception prop. That to me was just bananas. Generally, you don't see props like that except on guys like the Michael Thomases, like the Devontae Adamses, like the DeAndre Hopkins. Robbie Anderson's an alpha, man, and that it's not like it's not like that's a bad defensive backfield to go against. To me, though, it feels like maybe not that many people will be on Robbie Anderson because who wants to play two Panthers in their lineups unless this is a game stack? But look, game stacks can make sense because on the other side, Tom Brady is easily stackable with. I mean, I don't have the salaries pulled up, but I believe Chris Godwin's $6K. Mike Evans, I think, was $6,200, and then I'm pretty sure that Antonio Brown's $5,800. Out of all those guys, I might prefer Antonio Brown. Not sure I'm going to be getting involved in the running game for this if I'm stacking it for a tournament, because if I'm stacking it for a tournament, that what I'm trying to do in that case is I'm saying, all right, I'm playing Mike Davis. As long as I'm playing Mike Davis, why not differentiate in a way that okay, so some more another update from the Fantasy Life app. You guys should go download the Fantasy Life app. If you want to be better fantasy players, just go into the iOS store, go into the Google Play Store, and use it. You'll also get access to the chats that Byron, my business partner and co-host, does in there every Friday with Yasin, the CEO of the Fantasy Life app. So go and get that downloaded. It's free. If you hate it, just delete it. But you're not going to hate it. Just turn on the alerts. Let's see. But this alert is that Alan Lazard is not going to be back. So that is for the other game. I figured that was going to be the case. It just means that target share for Aaron Jones is probably going to stay about where it has. He's tough to get off of. But I think that Jamal Williams thing's like a one in a million type of play to get you that triple leverage that we talked about. I think that Brady's easy. I think this game stack, it differentiates you. I don't hear anybody talking about Brady, but does anybody think that Brady might not be angry as shit? And like, you could stack him with Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Mike Davis, Robbie Anderson. It's a cheap stack, relatively cheap game stack for the caliber of player that you're getting in there. I mean, Jesus, Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, with Tom Brady throwing them the football, and they're all 6K and below. Mike Davis with a 5.5 reception over under, like at least 4K. You can do all that stuff, and you can still put in Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, and pay up at tight end for Darren Waller or something like that. Let's go to Houston at Cleveland. I don't want to really spend too much time on this one because Cleveland's the play. Cleveland's windy, man. I think it's just because I'm a slow talking Texas boy down here, dude, and like I live right on like the lake's right down the hill for me. But this isn't the kind of lake like a big ass Lake Erie they have up there, man. That wind whips up off that lake. It's cold too, so lake effect winds. You got to downgrade Fuller. You got to downgrade Cooks. You got to downgrade Watson. All these guys. The play here is Duke Johnson. We talked about it when we opened up the Vegas tool earlier. Not quite, certainly not the free square that Mike Davis is, but I mean, he's going to be a borderline running back one this week with David Johnson out, and really moving forward for the next 3 weeks now that he's been put on IR. I see that a couple of you guys are in chat. Austin Gibbs is asking if I'd start him. Yeah, so you already got my answer. Of course I would start him. I think he's a good play. And I think with the wind, it's like if it's harder to push the ball downfield, it's like I know that Deshaun Watson hasn't been looking too interested in dumping the ball off to his backs this year. But if you're looking through those lower average depth of target throws, like he has a 3.5 reception prop. I would take the over on that. I think they're gonna have to dump it off to him just a whole bunch. It looks like on the other side that Nick Chubb is going to be back, and I think that is a play that is a play I would much rather consider as my Aaron Jones pivot if I wanted to do an Aaron Jones pivot, or if I wanted to play Mike Davis. And I wanted to maybe play Duke, even though I hate usually playing running backs in the same game. No, that isn't the same game. No. Yes, it is. Duke and Chubb. Even though I hate having to do that, I do think Chubb, he's going to be like 2% owned. And would it really surprise you if Nick Chubb came back? They say he's perfectly healthy. With how the Texans defense has been shredded, the linebackers still aren't back, and they're missing Charles Omenihu this week. Would it really surprise you to look up and see that Nick Chubb had gone for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns or something? I don't think that that's out of the question at all in a game where they could turn to the run and be a bit run heavy here. I came into the week high on Baker Mayfield, high on Jarvis Landry, high on Deshaun Watson, all these passing games. I don't want the wind to completely get me off it, but it has me a little bit more worried. Our model likes Jarvis for what it's worth, but that's sort of where I am with that, man. I'm pretty hesitant about this game outside of the runners, and I feel like the Chubb thing, that's a tournament play. Duke should definitely be in consideration for you right there at $5K for your cash games. And I don't exactly know what I'm going to do yet in my tournaments. You guys know I play mostly cash, but I've been trying to play more tournaments because I honestly feel that that's where the industry's going. Cash games are getting harder. It's just I think that I think the interest of most people is in tournaments. And so I've been trying to get better and better at them. But as somebody that thinks like me, where I just want to put the best roster in, and integrating all that game theory has been a work in progress. But if for my turn, the way I'm trying to think about tournaments this week is, I think that if you're getting off Aaron Jones, I think that Nick Chubb is in that price range is probably a better option than Miles Sanders, just from a pure tournament perspective. I think Austin Hooper is fine too. He's back this week, and you don't worry as much about the wind in the area of the field that he'll be operating in. Okay, firing through here. Denver at the Raiders at 58.5 total here. The Raiders are 3.5-point favorites. I love Josh Jacobs in games where the Raiders are favored. So given his price, he looks like he'll be a pretty good play. A little bit disappointed in his prop whenever I saw it. Let me just take a quick look at that. What was his prop? It was Jacobs, 71.5 rushing yards, 2.5 receptions, 13.5 receiving yards. He is minus 135 to score here. So it's crazy. Isn't it crazy that Vegas projects Mike Davis to have a better fantasy football day than Josh Jacobs? And I mean, Mike Davis is the minimum. Henry Ruggs is becoming unplayable. I can't believe how good he looked in that first quarter versus Carolina before he got hurt. Do you remember that? Like, I thought it was wheels up. I was like, Jesus Christ, man! Like, we're gonna get the full Henry Ruggs experience here. It just hasn't really been like that. They're spreading it around too much. Nelson Aguilar keeps creeping in. You got Brian Edwards now coming back. They throw the ball to Darren Waller. They just it's just hard to. hard to really depend on anybody there except for Jacobs and Waller for me on that side. And then on the Denver side, Noah Fant. I told you guys last week, I said, man, look, these tight ends can get loose against Atlanta. And the one tight end who I want to see getting loose in the open field out of anybody is Noah Fant. And you saw it on his first target, his first catch. Well, I think one of the first catches of the game by anybody. Noah Fant got loose. And then he hurt his ankle on that same play. And he came back in and he wasn't himself for the whole rest of the game. They say he's been good all week. So Noah Fant, I'm right back on it. I mean, Alberto tore his ACL, so he's no longer a threat down there in the red zone. Alberto had 6 red zone targets, or end zone targets so far this season. Let's see, people in the chat are. Would you play Davis in the flex or wide receiver? No, I play Mike. Well, I mean, it depends on the wide. If you're talking about a 4K wide receiver, then I'd play Davis, unless you just wanted to be much different in a tournament. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want to be much different in a tournament, I would do so in a way that would give me extra leverage, not only off of Davis, but off of Aaron Jones too, by playing somebody like a Jamal Williams. Okay, so and then Denver, you can't play Phillip Lindsay, you can't play Melvin Gordon, you can't do any of this stuff. You can't play Drew Lock. For me, the quarterbacks are really easy too, guys. It's Kyler, it's Josh Allen, it's Russell Wilson, it's Jared Goff, and I mean Cardi and Chief think I'm a donkey for even considering Jared Goff. The one other guy that maybe I would consider quarterbacks in this game, Chargers at Dolphins, a 48.5 point total in this game. 52% of the tickets are on the over, but 76% of the money on the over. The Sharps are on the overs this week, so you shouldn't be too surprised about that. And all the these are big over-unders too. Miami's favored by 1.5 here in this game because all that Justin Herbert does is just look awesome all game, and then Anthony Lynn calls some dumb fuck play at the end. What is that guy thinking? I mean, Michael Lombardi said it perfectly on his podcast this week. He said that that's just the nut low, like throwing the fade to Mike Williams, with 9 seconds left. It's like the thing that everybody knows is coming. It's like it's so uncreative. And you then, for your final play, you bring in Donald Parham, from Stetson University and from the XFL Dallas Renegades, and you put the game on the line on his shoulders. I mean, it was almost a great catch, but man, you need to come up with some better plays whenever you need a play besides just back pylon throws to the same side of the end zone. You have a great quarterback, one of the best in the league. And so he is one of the best in the league. You can play him. It's totally fine. Keenan Allen, too. It's in this range. There's a bunch of good plays. It's why I have trouble playing Terry McLaurin, man. Keenan Allen is like right here with Michael Thomas, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, all these guys. They're right here in the 6,900 to, I mean, you can give it a 7,600 and play DK Metcalf. So I have a little bit of trouble. Playing McLaurin, but definitely I'll play Keenan Allen. I'm not worried about Xavier Howard or Byron Jones really anyway against a route runner like Keenan Allen, but he's going to get away from those guys playing out of the slot, and that Herbert's going to find him. And I can't play. It's just who knows what to do with the running backs. Kalen Ballage has been called up. Justin Jackson I saw in the Fantasy Life app just earlier. It looks like he was he's going to be put on IR. So let's just take this game and let's just see what happens with it. I think the Miami defense could even be in play. One of the best pressure rates in the league. We love Herbert, but he is a rookie. And what the hell is going on with Brian Bulaga and Trey Turner? Why is nobody in the Los Angeles Chargers media reporting on this? They have been out for 7 weeks, and every week they're questionable and they never fucking play. And why didn't everybody ask him, like, what are you dumb fucks doing? Why are they not on IR? Like, why did they never get put on IR if they were going to be out this long? This isn't like a Joe Mixon thing where, like, the team obviously just underestimated the injuries or something. this is gone too far. So there is that. I'm just saying that those guys could be back. They're questionable. I believe Bulaga got into full practice on Friday, but that's just another thing. Maybe Miami defense, they're kind of cheap. I think they're 2,900 on DraftKings. And that's a good, Brian Flores is good, man. That's a good defense. So you could maybe keep them in mind. On the Miami side, you're going to hear the talk about, okay, so you guys have some questions about Herbert or Wentz. I play Herbert. Mike Williams or Chark. I play Chark. Okay. The what was I talking about? Oh, okay. I think I was talking about okay, on the Miami side. On the Miami side, Devontae Parker obviously gets the upgrade. No Preston Williams this week. They traded away Isaiah Ford. Just like who else is Tua going to throw to? The Chargers have not been as tough a matchup either on the perimeter as they generally have been. I'm looking here at the matchup tool at RosterWatch. It's just been basically a middling matchup. It's been a great matchup for opposing tight ends. We know that Mike Gesicki gets a ton of work out of the slot, so you go back to him. And then down at the very minimum, Cardi was talking up Jakeem Grant. I talked about him last week on the podcast, if you remember, saying that I expected him going up against his old college coach, Cliff Kingsbury, and a guy that he practices with here in Texas during the summer, and Kyler Murray and stuff. I just figured it was kind of a revenge game for him. And boy, the revenge narratives that we have this week. I didn't even mention all the revenge. We have Duke Johnson revenge, Adrian Peterson revenge. We have John Brown revenge. We have there's other revenge. I'll remember it as we get to it. But Jakeem Grant, post revenge stuff. You got to remember though, man, he's so small. He's as small as Darren Sproles. So maybe Malcolm Perry could be somebody to keep a sneaky eye on. The utility player that'll probably get some slot work and maybe some extra touches with the backfield being such a mess, being up in flux. I mean, we saw last week like Salvin Ahmed and these other guys getting involved. Matt Breida could be involved this week. DeAndre Washington now has cleared the COVID protocol. We think he's been there 2 weeks, so he could get involved. Who knows, man? Malcolm Perry, who was the triple option quarterback for Navy, they've been using him as a slot receiver, but he can certainly carry the football. So maybe he could be somebody, maybe more just like a dynasty guy to watch this week. But hell, if you're playing a millionaire maker, you could maybe look at him. If 5% of the crowd is going to be on Jakeem Grant, could be a good pivot there off of him. Buffalo at Arizona, the best game of the week by far, the fastest game of the week, the best quarterbacks we love to play. These this great stacking options at the high level and at the mid level. I just don't really know what we need to talk about here. I'd like to play Josh Allen and Kyler Murray if I could. I'd like to play DeAndre Hopkins. I'd like to play Christian Kirk. And the other thing is that the COVID deal with Buffalo, that thing hit today. Josh Norman and one other corner are going to miss the game. One of their safeties is going to miss the game. They had to call up 2 corners off their practice squad, activate them, and get them going to make the trip. So while we do probably get Tre'Davious White maybe on DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, Christian Kirk, it starts to feel like it's wheels up for him. And you know what? I mean, DK Metcalf says Tre'Davious White, I'll just give that asshole a chocolate swirly. Like, it didn't matter to him. I'm not sure it's going to matter too much to DeAndre Hopkins. But we're still awaiting word on Kenyon Drake. I'm not sure we'll get the word early tomorrow. Even if we're not, I'm still thinking I'll play Chase Edmonds. Chase Edmonds was set to smash last week. And we know that, versus Buffalo, if you can run the football on these idiots, that's the way that that's the way the teams have been able to go after them. I do see it being a high scoring affair. I do think the pace of the game is going to be up, and I think they'll be in scoring position. I just hope that they use Chase Edmonds as like Kenyon Drake plus Chase Edmonds and not just as Kenyon Drake, which is kind of what they used him as last week. Because I'd like to see the receptions for him. But I think I'm going to play Chase Edmonds over. I'm going to play Chase. I'm going to have Chase Edmonds, I think, in my lineup, even if I don't know. I'm very, very interested in playing Chase Edmonds here. And I might play him with Kyler. And I know that seems weird, but I think it's just a way to maybe somehow get a little bit different whenever I clearly have a lot of the same ideas as everybody else about the chalk plays like Mike Davis, et cetera, et cetera. We have Timmy Thorne asking about the industry seems high on Connor. I'll make sure and talk about that when we get to that game. But they do. I was high on him last week. I don't know what the hell happened. I mean, I do know what happened. The game script was completely wacky, and you could see it getting wacky again. That game will be we'll be up to that game next. He's not like, I'm not allowing him into my circle of trust. He's not up in the trust tree with me and Mike Davis and Cooper Kupp and Kyler Murray and some of these guys. I kick him right down out of the trust tree for sure. But I mean, of course, he could have a good game, and he's not going to be very popular coming off a bad week. And then Buffalo, like, I mean, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, John Brown, right? It's like, it's pretty easy. I don't want to play Zach Moss or Devin Singletary. Especially not given the opportunity cost at the running back position. So it kind of makes it easy for you. Cole Beasley too. He has a 4.5 reception, 49.5 yard prop. So he could be somebody you could throw in as well. I'm not sure if Patrick Peterson is. It seems like Patrick Peterson will be on Stephon Diggs, so that could be something to keep in mind. That guy Kevin Peterson on the other side really, really sucks. So John Brown revenge, Smokey Brown revenge, could be real. Could be real this week. I think that's that. Best game on the slate. Cincy at Pitt, 46-point total here after opening up as a 48-point total. We have Pittsburgh 7-point favorites. That's why people like Connor. It's like, it means it's 7-point favorites at home. I'm seeing too goddamn much Anthony McFarland too, man. I was tilting my face off last week about this Connor stuff. I'm not sure he looks good. Anthony McFarland been getting in too much. I mean, but it's like, look, Jesus Christ, the Vegas tool loves Connor. So it's the number 4 matchup of the week. He's 6,900. He has 78.5 yard rushing prop, a 3.5 reception, 22.5 yard receiving prop. He's minus 165 to score. So he has the 6th best scoring odds on the whole slate. Not many people are going to be on him. I'd say sub 7% are going to be on James Conner. So I think he's probably, I mean, he's in play. I probably need to get better about just not tilting, right now over last week's plays. But man, that plus Justin Jackson last week, it buried me. And it's like, it feels like there are probably runners out there who come without those same worries about volatility. And then how do you choose, man, between Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool? And like this whole game to me, I'll be damned if I'm playing any of these Bengals. I don't care if Joe Mixon's out and Gio is going to be available. I think Gio looks shitty. Like I was interested to see T. Higgins had a 5.5 reception prop. I mean, I'm honestly thinking about trying to see if I can find a way to pay up for the Pittsburgh defense. Is Bobby Hart still out? Let me just see here. Bengals. So with the Bengals on the offensive line, so Bobby Hart's still out. Is Trey Hopkins back? So Trey Hopkins, he had the concussion. He has no injury designation coming back this week. Jonah Williams is still questionable. It's like that offensive line is still banged up. What do we look for when we look for good defenses? Defenses that have good pressure rates, defenses that are going against quarterbacks with bad offensive lines, and defenses that are going against quarterbacks that are going to drop back a ton. And that's Pittsburgh this week. The only problem is you got to pay through the damn nose to get these idiots. But something to keep in mind there. I'm not interested in the Cincinnati side at all. I think most of the interest on the Pittsburgh side probably should be on Connor, as our guy. Who was it? Who asked about Connor? Timmy Thorne asked about just a little bit earlier. All right. two more games, guys. The Seattle Seahawks at the Rams, 54.5 point total in this game. The Rams are somehow 2.5 point favorites. I don't know if that's just because McVay is coming off a bye and they think that he'll have a good, they think that he'll have a good game plan for this. We know the Rams like to run. They like to skew run heavy, but you can't convince me that Sean McVay coming off a bye week isn't going to just look at what Buffalo just did versus these guys. Look at just the blueprint versus Seattle and say, look, you can't, believe it or not, you have a hard time running on them. Or just teams just choose not to run on them. It's probably, I think it's more of the latter, but like with everything, it's, probably somewhere in the middle. I think it's I think it's probably that the team's just, Brian Daboll last week, that was just a great game. Just go in and just like, we're not going to run it. And Pete Carroll said after the game, he's like, they didn't run the football. What the hell are we supposed to do? It's like, what the hell are you supposed to do, Carroll? You just got extended for another 3 years. You're supposed to fucking make an end game adjustment, But I think that McVay is probably going to want to come out and throw. I think a lot of 11 personnel. That's what makes me like. I think Josh Reynolds is a really good play at 3,500. I can't believe I had my wife start Josh Reynolds over Michael Pittman, who she had in her lineup to start before she even asked me for any goddamn advice on Thursday night. So I slept on the couch, and then I'm hoping for redemption here on Sunday with him. But my favorite's Cooper Kupp, and like Cardi called me a donkey for it. Chief called me a donkey for it. To me, he's a golden son. I love him. I love him in this matchup. He's getting he's getting the target share, and it just feels like a game where they're gonna be game planning to pass the football, and when they do, I heard an interesting statistic on another Roto Grinders show, not the one that I do, but the ones that my friend Blender does with the I forget the guy's name, but it's the show Blender does on Roto Grinders, right? And the dude on there was saying Advanced Sports Analytics, and the dude on there was saying that if you look at the correlation for Jared Goff's big games correlate with Cooper Kupp much more than they correlate with Robert Woods, meaning that whenever Jared Goff has ceiling games, Cooper Kupp has ceiling games. Whenever Jared Goff and or Robert Woods have ceiling games, the other one is far, far less likely than the pairing with Goff and Kupp. I'm not exactly sure why that's the case. My theory is that, and he didn't explain why that was the case. He only gave the correlation numbers. The only reason maybe because sometimes Robert Woods has scored a few touchdowns over the past few years on these end arounds and these carries. But regardless, it seems like when the pass game is really, really humming, that it's always a Cooper Kupp, like 11 catch, 150 yard, 2 touchdown kind of game, right? And the thing is, if you are playing this in a tournament and you're playing golf, you need to think about like, well, all right, who am I going? If I'm playing golf, who am I going against here? And these are the new things I'm trying to think about as somebody that's trying to get better at tournaments and trying to exit the whole cash game thing. It's getting harder and harder, right? In tournaments, like if I need Jared Goff to I need Jared Goff to go ham if I'm gonna win a tournament. So for Jared Goff to go ham, okay, what does that mean? Okay, 380 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air. So if that happens, I can't just stack him with Kupp. I'm going to need to stack him with another player. I kind of like making it Kupp and Reynolds and saving a little bit of money. But certainly Kupp and Woods, you could be totally fine doing it. On the Seattle side, and Daryl Henderson, if you just want to just completely say that Sean McVay goes caveman and ignores tendencies and just wants to run, Daryl Henderson's only going to be like 1% owned. And then on the other side, I don't trust any of those backs on Seattle. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm interested in DK Metcalf. I'm interested in Tyler Lockett. I'm interested in Russell Wilson. And finally, Tyler Lockett is so much cheaper. But here's the thing, guys. Tyler Lockett's had basically one big game where he went absolutely ape. And DK Metcalf has outproduced him in every other game, bad matchup or not. And I'm kind of like, I know we're talking about Jalen Ramsey. I know we say this like this week, and but Jalen Ramsey hasn't been shadowing. He hasn't been trailing guys. It feels like he probably should. He told people that he wasn't going to this week, but then you had the defensive coordinator there for the Rams say that, yeah, that's definitely a matchup that everybody should be looking forward to seeing. Two true alphas. I don't necessarily know if that means he's planning on having him trail him or not. I don't think we're going to get to know. What we do know is that the Rams' new defensive coordinator is very, very sharp. So DK Metcalf is, it doesn't do much to pull up a game log, but if you just look at what he's done, man. Like he's one of the best wide receivers in the game right now, and this is just an incredible scoring environment. I mean, he has not gone under 92 yards in any game this year, except for that game at Arizona in week 7. Isn't that incredible? He's had one or more touchdowns in all but 2 games this year. I mean, he's gotten you over 100 receiving yards in half of his games this season. It's that people wonder, like, it's at this point, it's not a hard decision which one to go with. But the fact is now they finally realized that with the pricing algorithm, and Tyler Lockett's a lot cheaper. So I think both those guys are fine. But as you can tell, I'm at this point, until proven otherwise, I'm always going to prefer DK Metcalf in the vacuum. Finally, San Francisco and New Orleans. New Orleans 10-point favorites here. Nick Mullins traveling to the Dome. 50% of the tickets are on the under, along with 31% of the money. 54% of the tickets are on New Orleans, along with 40% of the money. Alvin Kamara is great. It's hard to pay up so high for him, like we talked about earlier, when you have Aaron Jones for $1,100 less and Michael Thomas coming back. My main interest here is Michael Thomas. It's like, why is nobody talking about Michael Thomas? Have we forgot about Michael Thomas? I mean, he's Michael Thomas. Last I checked, right? He is still Michael Thomas. I think he's Michael Thomas. You guys in chat, let me know. Is he still Michael Thomas? I think he is. It's a good matchup. You know, the whole 49ers defense is hurt. He's home. He's in the Dome. I don't want to play Drew Brees because I'm interest in these other quarterbacks. But I mean, as a one-off, I just think on the Saints side, Michael Thomas is an elite one. Of course, you can always play Alvin Kamara. Of course, you can. You just got to worry. It's like that target share is 27% or whatever it is. That thing's going to come down with Michael Thomas back and him fully integrated into a game and finally back. I'm not sure that Tampa Bay game was, any sort of bellwether about or any, canary in the coal mine or whatever, like any sign of what's to come for the rest of this year with Michael Thomas. So you're getting him for $7,400. We've gladly played $10K for him at home versus bad defenses before. And it's like I told you about Christian McCaffrey last week. It's the lowest price and the cheapest ownership, or the lowest ownership and the cheapest price that you're going to get Michael Thomas at until he really does start to be bad. And that could be like 3 years from now or something. Michael Thomas would, could be 4 years. This could be the best price and the best price could be with the best ownership. Just like I said for McCaffrey last week, exactly the same thing. And this doesn't come with the risk of him being the first game off of injury. So I think Michael Thomas is a terrific play this week. I'm planning on playing him. And then on the San Francisco side, look, no one's going to really look at these guys, but Jerick McKinnon, that's probably fine. And then Brandon Ayuk is another guy, and it's tough because there's so many good wide receivers. But Brandon Ayuk, man, if I am going to be having to correlate this game somehow, and I am playing Michael Thomas, I think that Brandon Ayuk, now that we know that there's no Deebo Samuel, George Kittle's out. Coach Shanahan talked to Troy Aikman before that broadcast that they did last week and said, like, look, we've designed to where it's like every pass can go through a guy like Brandon Ayuk. I mean, they see him as the true alpha there. If this is a game where San Francisco can keep it the least bit close, and, if we're playing Michael Thomas, that's sort of going to be the hope that San Francisco can keep it a little bit close. I think that correlating that with a guy like Brandon Ayuk is a terrific strategy. All right, guys, that'll be it for the DFS walkthrough. I ran a little bit long. I want to do it 30 minutes, but it took like 50. That's how it always goes when I get talking and chatting with you guys. But we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you guys subscribing over at rosterwatch.com. If you could please give a thumbs up, leave not a review, but leave a comment. I don't know, subscribe. We'll talk to you guys soon, man. Best of luck this week. Win some money, man. Win some money and then let us know about it.